Hi, welcome to Expert Talks at Mavericks. This is the interview series with thought leaders in the AI, analytics, and transformation space. My name is Mahadevann Iyerr, Mahaa for short. I'm your host for today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mavericks, which is a managed marketplace for on-demand analytics and business transformation services. Our guest for today is Bhargab Dutta. Bhargab is the Chief Digital Officer at Century Plyboards. Before Century Plyboard, Bhargab was the Director of Digital and Analytics COE at Colgate Palmolive. Bhargab has also held leadership roles in digital and analytics at Aditya Birla Group, at General Mills and Honeywell, among others. Bhargab has been rated by CEO Insights magazine as the top 10 chief digital officers in India. 3A has also acknowledged him as among the top 100 AI makers of India. Bhargab speaks and writes frequently at industry forums. And Bhargab, really privileged to have you here on Expert Talks at Mavericks. Thanks for making time, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Maha. Thanks for your time as well.
Okay, Bhargab. So so you obviously worked in Honeywell. You worked in General Mills, which is in the food FMCG business, largely Ultratech Cement at Aditya Birla Group, and Colgate Palmolive, which is a non-food FMCG, right? And now Century Plyboard, right? So these are organizations, very different from each other. And when I say very different, in terms of their in terms of the MNCs or Indian-based companies, in terms of their size, in terms of their product offerings, in terms of possibly the organizational culture and data maturity as well, right? So what I want to understand from you is, given your experience, how how do each of these factors, which is the organizational culture, organizational vintage and maturity, the level of data availability and digital focus that is there in the company, and the type of team that you have. How does each of this contribute in making a digital and analytics function, be able to provide impactful solutions?
Yeah, so thanks, Maha. So this is really actually interesting point. The question you raised out, as you rightly said, I have worked in multiple cultural entities, and their size also differs, and maturity also differ. And in each of these organizations also provide you a different kind of challenge to address for it. But having said that, fundamentally what they want from us, they want from us some data-driven decision making enabler, so that their business processes run smoothly. They are able to make their growth or incremental growth, or whatever way you can consider it, able through our data-driven analysis, supporting our with support from our data-driven analysis, plus the cost-saving opportunity. These are three things only every organization want. Now, once everyone is clear about these three things, then we need to go backtrack, look at how is our data, how is our culture in understanding those data, then what technology we are at that particular organization we are leveraging, right? So now, based on these three aspects, from the organization vision to these foundational three aspects, then you think about creating the analytics journey and charter. So this is typically the approach I take it. Now, depending on your organization maturity, I can take some examples as well. Like in let's say in my previous stint in Colgate and all, their technology maturity was relatively better than other organizations that I have worked with. However, their analytics maturity is not better. That was the interesting point. So hence, the strategy what I took from the analytics perspective, not much of technology aspect at that time, and then started my journey. Whereas in my current organization, the technology maturity is not that high, so I am focusing on technology side first, and then I'll go towards data and my analytics journey. So that is how we need to be ready with adjusting your starting point, linking with your organizational vision and the maturity. So that is how I take it forward.
Oh, very well articulated. So you're essentially saying, depending on where the organization wants to go and the audit of the current situation of the organization, then you essentially you plan your way forward in terms of
Yeah.
how to actually start moving them in that particular direction towards their vision. Now, so one of the other part that I want was very interesting about your thing was, like I said, you worked across multiple domains like ultratech cement, food FMCG, non-food FMCG. Now, with Century Plyboards, it's again a consumer product in a sense, right? Used by so there are people, there are users and there are consumers,
Yeah.
like typically, right?
Consumers, correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you and obviously all of us know that domain knowledge and situational awareness is extremely important to be able to finally deliver solutions which are practical and can help organizations, like you say, either with their growth needs or cost saving needs or the innovation requirements or whatever. So what are some of the approaches that you have taken? And you have had, like, typically you spend 3, 4, 5 years each of these organizations, which means you have had the need to or the requirement to quickly develop that situational awareness and then be able to respond to the business, right? So what are some of those approaches? And if there is a 30, 60-day, 90-day plan type of stuff to quickly see how you can assimilate domain knowledge and domain context.
Yeah. So I have a particular framework which I try to follow for my help, my own help. I work on this framework for last 6, 7 years. So what I typically try to do, any problem statement or any area that I need to work for, my first objective is to define the problem statement. If I am able to define the problem, I have seen that 50% of your solutioning will be almost easy to conceive later on. Without jumping to solutioning, always work on defining the problem. So that is what I follow first. Then once you define the problem, then another aspect is that because ultimately I'm accountable to my management, that whatever I'm doing, I need to show result, right? So then to show result, what are those target KPIs I should follow and I should target for, right? And then based on the target KPIs, what value realization in terms of growth, cost, or efficiency, whatever we can measure, I can track. So these three things I typically set in my process. Now, when this is done, then I came to the domain expertise part, because without domain expertise, it is like you are cooking some meal looking at YouTube video, right? It may be very tasty or it may be discardable also. So that is how it is. So then I bring the domain expertise. Domain expertise generally help us. It is always needed, no doubt about that. It will help us in rightly articulating the solutioning approach, and it will also help us in rightly identifying what all actual data points or data features or variables we need to incorporate in our overall journey, right? Otherwise, it is ocean of data everywhere. Now data is abundant. So these are a few things that domain expertise definitely play a big role in making a successful analytics journey. Then third aspect about situational awareness that you mentioned, right? So there, my take is somewhat this way, like even if you look at my experience as well as my industry peer and other industry expert as well, they will always say that not all projects are successful in analytics and transformation journey. Yeah. Maybe 50-60% are largely actually giving some beneficial, some kind of impact, right? And we have to be ready for that. Now, even if to make 50-60% success of whatever you are doing, the situational awareness will play a big role, so that you need to aware of where you are going wrong in towards your journey, during your journey, and how you can do the immediate course correct, right? So that is where the situational awareness play a big role. So I can give you certain example also, but they will take quite a bit of time.
No,
But
please do. Please do.
yeah, one of
It will help our listeners.
Yeah, correct. So in one of my recent engagement in my previous role, when we are doing some exercise on promo strategy, promo the product being given promo, right? Promos and all these things. Now we have two kind of promo. Like one is your channel partners, and one is for end consumer, right? So trade as well as consumer. So now the what happened? The problem that the team has started, they took that entire promo as a one promo, but then then came the domain expertise piece, right? Because my channel partners, the way they behave, and my end consumer, you and me, the way I behave and I see the promo is a totally different. And accordingly, how we can backtrack my data segment, my customer segment, and accordingly I redefine my problem statement and reformulate modeling approach for this trade customer and consumers. So that is where that immediate course correction we had to take immediately, so that eventually when I created the promo strategy, it will cater for both. If I gave one umbrella to everyone, it ultimately some people will be out of the umbrella, right? When it is raining. So it is like that. So these are the things that is play very important during your analytics journey, especially the situational awareness. How quickly you can course correct and implement, re-strategize, and redefine and deliver the solution at as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. So, so since you spoke about the example of your previous organization and, promo through a trade and promo through the end consumer. So let's actually, probe that a little more, right? So now
Yeah.
you've been on the FMCG space, and now with Century Plywood as well. And one of the challenges that most consumer goods companies have is obviously some amount of direct consumer access is there through their e-commerce channel or whatever, but largely it's a trade channel. Obviously the mix is changing, but it's largely a trade channel, right? And a issue for most consumer good companies in FMCG is about really understanding their end consumer. Maybe 10-15% are still buying directly. Largely it is through trade, and trade promotion is essentially a huge cost for most CPG companies, right? Uh, so given some of the new tech that is evolving, or new ways of engaging with end customers or through the consumers through a trade channel, what are some of those new technologies or approaches that are available today for consumer product companies to understand their end consumers, their choices, and their buying patterns or shopping patterns better?
Yeah. So traditionally, majority of FMCG industry have they have that consumer insight team, as you might be aware of, right? Who
Yeah.
does quite a bit of primary and secondary research data points, and based on that they create hypotheses, and based on that it goes into product development and marketing strategy. So that has been the traditional way of working. So now I think they are coming up with this CMI plus kind of concept,
Mhm.
where this exactly what you are saying, new age technology can be used for. So a couple of things we actually tried in the recent past. One is on the looking at that neuro vision based analytics.
Mhm.
So when the customer or consumer, in this case consumers, goes into your shelf,
Mhm.
shelf is there, right? And it has all the assortment of all the products, not only mine and my competitors as well.
Mhm.
And as you can know, it's at a different height, different stack, likewise, right? The
Mhm.
way they move and based on their eye movement. And actually we did this experiment in some of the stores. We put a kind of a very sci-fi looking headset
Mhm.
and try to map those movement and also brain activities
Mhm.
to understand where the attention clicks, right? In what kind of product categories, what kind of within the same category, what type of products, and what
Mhm.
kind of and those. Then based on that, we try to mine. Okay, if this is the interesting segment of the same category of product, then what is there in that segment, right? And that becomes an analytical input for my product development innovation team. So this is one thing we tried as a one new age technology, leveraging new age neurovision based approach. So similarly, now that is one thing. Similarly to from the AI, pure AI led one intervention, we also we have also taken. So the, let's say there is a toothpaste. I'll take one example of toothpaste for now, or I can take a recent example of my ply also, but it is more or less a similar concept. Let's take a toothpaste, and the way people perceive when they are brushing, right? That perception comes from two, three aspects. One is efficacy, whether it is actually doing the cleaning purpose, whitening purpose or not. Secondly, the taste and flavor, right? Whether it is tasty or flavor is good or not. And third aspect is safety. So for renowned organizations, safety is more or less given. People are more or less that is being built. But the other two factors are always a thing to always compete for with my competitors, right? They also doing the same thing. So now how we can tap that change in behavior, what is happening or what is going to happen, actually not what is happening, what is going to happen, how quickly we can tap and predict that and bring into our product innovation. That is where also another AI led trend, I would say trend identification kind of concept we have also adopted. It may be the product maybe I'm selling in India, but that trend may be visible in Spain, right? But I know because the behavior of people in that geography of Spain is similar to somewhat in India. I'm just giving a hypothetical example, okay? And based on that, I can take some confidence level in my assessment that okay, this trend of this flavor and taste combination may be suitable for us, and that goes as an insight, and then organization does sample testing and some pilot test case and then goes, right? So these are some ways of new age technology that we are also trying to use in our engagement as well. I'm not talking about the other aspect like AR, VR, that virtual reality and all these things, that experience phase, because in some aspect it is good to have. You can give those experience through your air set and all, but ultimately people want to have the feel eventually, physical right? Product. Yeah. Physical product. So it is good for wow thing, but if you consider the ACPL format, it is good for AI awareness part definitely, but to reach to purchase and loyalty, it is not always that foolproof. Hence, yeah, all other aspects I would like to highlight more than the other things.
Okay, absolutely. So now, when you spoke of in one of your interviews, you spoke of the fact that you spoke of MarTech, right? Yeah, and you spoke of saying that earlier when you wanted to target, you would target and personalize at the area level, and now you are able to target at a road level. Yeah, right? That was your comment. So if you can, but I always used to believe that when you are targeting personalization, you need to have some sort of a customer reachability type of information, right? Customer, identifiable information is required for you to reach there. So if you can give some examples of, how did you use MarTech platforms to experiment and reach people by identifying the right segment and then being able to reach them, and then see if you could get some response modeling out of them.
Yeah, so here actually, although I mentioned about purely MarTech kind of technology solution, but there it also requires some additional aspect, at least from the data side, right? Correct. So in this example, in this case, what we did, we actually created a very personalized assortment recommendation engine for our stores, which you can see Kirana stores and on the road, right? But that is for store level. But to make that store level assortment, it may be a very small store. You can roadside, you can see, right? Correct. What I need the socio-demographic profile of that vicinity, right? So that is where the data plays a big role. So based there are multiple data providers nowadays available, and in India also it is available. At least at road level also, in fact nowadays village level also, you will get the purchasing power kind of data at this moment, okay, in India. And what does it mean, like how much they are spending in different activities. I always think you get some good, reasonably good confidence and quality data. At the same time, when I lay down that information along with my segment of product category and my segment of distribution reach, then not only me, my competitors and all, and then I apply all the martech kind of approach on top of that. Now I need to go for first of all, I need from pure analytics perspective, I need to create the assortment part, which is the right assortment recommended for that locality, for that set of people. Now then I need to make the people aware, okay, for that particular demography of people, let's say in this demography in Bangalore, let's say in Koramangala area, which is kind of young people nowadays, right, live here. For oral care, now there's a big concept coming up like whitening, oral beauty as a new concept coming up. So now because I know this is a young affluent community, they are conscious about their health and beauty. Hence, from the assortment recommendation engine, I'm creating that assortment relevant for them in that locality. And then from the MarTech approach, I am communicating them through different means, right? It could be a digital medium, it could be some offline medium as well, but largely digital medium nowadays, giving them the showing them the availability and benefits of the product available in their locality, and then I'm eventually trying to bring my entire business case around that. So this is how I would actually summarize the entire MarTech journey at this moment. Now the question is that how we can streamline, automate, and optimize the entire thing. That is the next big thing. That is where the other aspect of the customer data platform, then the digital platform, and then assimilating everything together, then creating that again, data security is also another aspect nowadays, right? That clean room technology also needs to be brought in so that things are anonymized when I'm doing communication, and then linking with my analytics AI engine. So this entire philosophy is quite interesting nowadays, and this is where I think the differentiating factor within the FMCG community will be seen. That is my point of view.
So is this what the control tower approach you are referring to? Is this what it is, or it is slightly different?
It is a similar analogy, somewhat similar to control tower. In control tower, largely I see from my digital activity kind of thing at this moment. But with the digital activity, how I can link with my business results as well, right? Actually, not exactly business results, but other operational aspect, distribution reach, my sales put every hours, and those kind of thing also needs to merge it. In a way, it is a control tower concept. In a way.
Got it. Got it. Now, so one of the things that most leaders, digital analytics leaders have to do a trade-off is in terms of there are projects which are very business facing, very immediate, high on demand, like my sale is plateauing, a particular product is not selling type of stuff. And then you on the other end of the spectrum, you typically have what I call as transformational projects where people really build models and build the digital infrastructure to deliver those solutions and all that, right? And all of us as analytics and digital leaders go through this thing of there is a business pressure, and equally there is a strategic imperative for why we exist as a function. So again, your thoughts on what is the good balance to have, and is there a concept of balance? Should there even be a balance, or how would you approach it? So just your thoughts on that would be very helpful.
Yeah, this is actually always a chicken and egg kind of story in organizations. Most of the organizations I have joined. So what I try to do, see, this is needed. It is not that it's not needed. After all, when I get sponsorship from my management team, they also expect something in return, right? Something
Hmm.
that is justifiable thing. So hence this balance is needed. So what typically, how I try to bring this balance into my work, I took it in this way. One is I try to see what are all those quick wins that will give some incremental benefit. Okay, I'm not saying
Hmm. Hmm.
absolute benefit. I'm using the word incremental.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
such scenario, typically I go for quick win kind of easily deployable practical solution kind of thing. That is what approach one I take it. Right? Now at the same time, I also what I try to make people, management aware. Okay, see, this is a quick win. I can do this today, but if you ask me to do this again 6 months, 8 months, 9 months down the line, I cannot do it immediately. The reason is that your data profile will be your data and your business go-to-market strategy will be different by back then, by then, and because I do not have fundamental things like data strategy and all these things are defined as a my long-term strategic perspective. So whatever change you do, I will not be immediately accommodated in my data foundation strategy, right? So hence I cannot be
Hmm.
doing immediately do something different 6 months down the line. So they understand. So hence what I do both the option parallelly. Quick win for incremental growth visibility, and the foundational work from the long-term sustainability perspective, making management team aware and make them understand actually what does it mean. So this is one definite approach. Another aspect at the same time for purely deep and deep learning or I mean I should not use the word deep learning, but more accurate modeling approach if let's say one wants to take, but there are certain area where you should not go for quick turnaround. That is what also I want to highlight. Let's say in the manufacturing setup, there is a critical process, and that process and let's say that industry is a chemical industry, a hazardous industry, right? And the process is very hazardous, and there is the process requires a temperature control monitoring based on process variability. And there, let's say if I go for a quick win kind of concept, and if my solution does not give me correct alarming predictability, right? Then my process can go here, and then it could be a big safety issue. So there, in such scenario, I will never go for quick win approach. So this kind of things also we need to keep in mind, looking at what industry, what incremental benefit you are thinking of for quick win. At the same time, what is that criticality of business in terms of cost and safety, right? Considering these few aspects, I do the balancing between quick ins and deep insight based modeling approach.
Oh, excellent. Very nicely articulated. So saying you typically balance between business impact, immediacy, the risks of safety, and and the type of effort that you need to put in, and then you balance to take the call.
Yeah.
But what I also understand is even if there is an immediate requirement for business, you while you do the quick win, you also look at a long-term perspective, ensure that you are using that confidence you built with business to try
Yeah.
and get their sponsorship for building a slightly long-term solution parallelly as well, if I've understood it
Yes.
right.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Great. So now, when you spoke of the last point when we were discussing, you spoke of, getting some outside in perspective, right? So there are secondary
Mm.
data providers and all that, right? Now, typically in I mean, you had the Kantars and the AC Nielsen's and all
Mm.
that, providing some surveys, some data, and some secondary research that most, consumer good companies would depend on, right? But now there are a lot of digital insights available. I mean, Google is one classic
Mm.
example of which can
Mm.
actually tell you data with a high level of velocity and possibly even a high level of accuracy, which can actually help you do data innovation, use it for your own prediction purposes, right? Uh,
Yeah. Mm.
any experience of such digital tools that you have used for gathering data and all that about consumers or about market spaces?
Yeah, actually, I have a very interesting example on this. That
Okay.
was way back in my General Mills days.
Mm,
That time we were facing an issue in terms of General Mills has a yogurt business, okay, yogurt, which is and that business is very problem with that business is that yogurt has roughly about 21 to 25 days of shelf life,
mm,
and you cannot sell it before that. And when Walmart and all they buy from us, purchase from us, and they do not purchase if it is less than, I think, 16 days of shelf life is remaining. So for them,
mm,
it is even less, right?
mm,
So hence, safe the inventory control is very important for that for that business. Otherwise, I will
correct.
lose business, and all
Mm,
in both way, either loss of sales or my high this fire and destroy kind of thing, right? So
mm,
what we have we observed during the month of January, there is a huge spike of yogurt.
mm,
We had a small this cup kind of yogurt also available, as well as big pack as well. So it was kind of surprising thing, because generally most of the time we face problem of fire and this destroy issue because of shelf life issue. But during that phase, it's a loss of sales issue. Inventory is not always adequate. So people were clueless. So then what we did, we tried to mine Twitter data at that time. Okay,
mm, mm,
back then it was Twitter. Twitter and some other social media based information, because in US in 2016-17 onwards they have been using quite active, those people, right? In India it is now. We realized that the New Year resolution post 31st January, people will suddenly become health conscious,
ah,
and
ah,
they try to go for healthy snacking kind of habit. Uh, Although this is a known fact for everyone, but we did not realize. Then, based on the mining social media data, we realized that aspect, and we provided insights. See, this is a trend we have seen in social media discussion and all. This could be a factor for our high demand of that product during that period of time, and Except that clicked. So this is one interesting outside in perspective that we brought in from a digital means perspective, right? And so this is what quite interesting. Similarly, I can give some domestic example as well. Let's say when I was working at for Builder Group, largely with Ultratech Cement. So the this the way when we are trying to develop our digital transformation journey for supply chain organization to start with, what we understood that if you look at home building as a sector, right? Home building that
mm,
includes cement, paint, then this supply and all, and electrical and plumbing, everything. Then we realized within that sector, paint industry actually quite ahead of cement industry in India
mhm,
in adopting various digital transformation based methodologies. They were more into, although the paint, they also selling through distribution channel. But if you look at Asian paints and all, it is more consumer facing kind of communication, if you realize, right?
correct, correct.
Which was lacking in other home building sector. So that is actually one very interesting understanding we had. Then we try to think about how we can bring that end consumer connect. Although I'm selling to my dealers in Italy, but then ultimately they are my end consumer, right? So from that thought onwards, channelizing the, the communication mechanism, channelizing my distribution mechanism as well. Also, quite a bit of interesting learning we brought in from the other industry. So these kind of various examples I can cite quite a bit of examples, but but in the short, outside in perspective is definitely always needed, and we should always be lookout for such kind of learning from outside.
No, very nice. So one example, the first one is typically in General Mills, it was like a health, you said it's a health yogurt or whatever, like a non-fat, possibly health yogurt. And what you are saying is ideally it sells, yogurt sells during summer, during the, hot months of the year. But you found that this was selling in January, and when you did analysis of Twitter and social media feeds and all that, you realized that that had gone up because a lot of people were taking their New Year resolutions of being health conscious, and so the non-fat whatever the health yogurt actually sold. And then you use that to remedy future stock issues and all that for that, right? And the other example you're saying is you have to look at your industry, so not just the data part of it, but I think this is more about the digital transformation side of your work, where you have looked at parallel industries which are in some sense serving the same end consumer for almost the same type of need. And you're saying that if that is there and you're able to identify those parallel industries, and one among them or two among them are a little advanced in certain areas, instead of trying to recreate the process, you can actually in some sense innovatively copy and adapt to your business and quickly get going. Am I right in understanding that?
Correct.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Excellent. Great. Okay. Now, so when we talk of digital and analytics in the current world, you cannot complete any conversation without speaking about generative AI, right? It is early days. I mean, I find generative AI is having a lot more traction or mind space thanks to ChatGPT and Midjourney and Tally, etc. But given your own, because you also spoke of Martech, and now even in Century Ply, you're actually trying to help the business grow. What is your sense of the adoption of generative AI? How excited are you about it? And what are some of the caveats that you would like our listeners to be cognizant of?
Yes, as you rightly said, it is quite exciting at this moment. However, I would still say it is at the hype cycle at this moment. Having said that, I will also not rule out that there is no use case. Definitely, there is a definite good use case. So eventually it will touch almost everywhere. Eventually, that is my thought. Looking at how it is evolving, right? And everyone is focusing on that. Now the point is that how we can create the ancillary ecosystem based on the generative AI capabilities. So that is where the crux for people like me will be, because I am not going to focus on creating a ChatGPT backend engine. Then my focus would be how I can use them for my business need, right? That is where I need to work on, and that is where it will touch almost everywhere in my prediction in next 2 to 3 years, or maybe 3 to 5 years time down the line. So having said that, what we have done some experiment recently in case of FMCG industry, I can take it like for one specific use case we also attempted, and it shows quite promising result is on the content creation. So content basically description, product description part. So what you can see when you see let's say in any e-com platform, when you type for the product, it shows the description and then it pops up, right? Now that is from the e-com perspective. But then when you do Google search, now your product may come at the top or it may not come, right? I'm not talking about sponsored one. I'm talking from organic perspective.
Organic search, yeah.
Yeah. So for that purpose, what we try to understand, and that ranking, organic purpose, that ranking depends on whatever user is typing is relevant with my description of the product, right? If that is somewhat relevant, then it will pop up in the top of the search. That is where we adopted generative AI as an experiment to optimize that product description, and by analyzing the keyword, trending keywords relating to that particular segment of product industry, and linking that trending keywords and generating my product description. Nice. So that becomes interesting way of winning your search ranking without being a sponsored ranking. So this is one interesting attempt we have made, and we saw it is a quite beneficial. However, it is still an early journey, and probably there might be some fine tuning would be needed. But in certain product categories, it is it is a promising result that we have found. In addition to that, your static image and all these things anyway you can create very easily. So those kind of other use cases are anyway there. So I will not talk about it because everyone is using that all these things. But what this is, but what my take would be that it will be more impactful when Gen AI will be helpful in product innovation side. I think that is where it is still a work in progress kind of concept. If I am if this concept can provide me more insight in product innovation side, that would be the best case scenario for any industry. So that is what I will be looking forward to. Now, coming to the check and balance, of course, the because it is still evolving, we need to have a I would say watchful eyes of whatever is coming out of that experiment, right? So that has to be there. Sometimes the context gets lost, what we have observed. Specifically, if it is a, let's say, if I have to understand one use case, actually we tried in a research paper perspective. There was a long research paper on a certain segment. I will not name the segment at this moment because of confidentiality. And we wanted to understand the main context of that research paper through Gen AI. But what we have observed that it is not very successful at that time. It is especially the middle, if it is, let's say, maybe 40, 45 pages kind of thing, the middle, some important pages context, it is not able to generate in between 15 to, I would say, maybe 30 page kind of in between some important context actually, but it was not able to generate. So hence those are a few check and balance we need to check about, because still it can do many things, but we will still have to use our own domain insight on top of that quite frequently.
No, so you're right. Generative AI still has challenges, but obviously it is very exciting because anything which is not very critical, you could still use it right now. Like you said, content creation, as long as there is a human in the loop, you can still actually use it.
Yeah.
So I was just trying it out, in the initial sentiment analysis before generative AI came in and large language models came in. You had this thing like classic case of the cockroach in your soup was yummy, and then it says the positive sentiment, right? And thank you, can I offer you more type of stuff, right? So I tried that on ChatGPT, saying that, please give me a sentiment analysis of a statement by a customer which says cockroach in the soup was yummy, right? And frankly, it came out saying that it is a very ambiguous comment because, while it says it sounds positive, you don't want cockroaches. Cockroaches by nature are, having cockroach in food is negative. And so I think it has got both a positive and negative combination. So I'm not able to say what sentiment it is. Now, so, and that is, I'm talking of ChatGPT, which is able to answer most of the things, right? So I think there is some evolution to happen, and you cannot, you'll still need some human in the loop somewhere before it gets fine-tuned there.
Yeah, it is still at a robotic process that human sarcasm and all these things still missing to some extent.
Correct. So let's talk about one more part, which is now, the future of AI, Gen AI is there, low code, no code platforms are coming in, right? While programming and all that is required, but it is becoming less and less important as long as people have a context and the approach and the way they want to solve a problem. More and more platforms will enable people, if you have the right approach and, a problem-solving approach, you can possibly get that type of stuff, right? Equally, there is the other word. So there's the future of AI, which is moving towards low-code, no-code, self-assist type of, platforms and all that. And you have the future of work, which is essentially, again, moving more towards work from anywhere, work from any place, work anytime. Now there is a lot of fractional work happening, a lot of, partial and full freelancer work happening and all that, right? Do you see that the analytics industry as it is set up today, right, where, from outsourcing, it was predominantly insourcing, from the TCS Infosys people and have been moving more to GCCs, keeping everything under control. Do you see this possibly the future of work and future of AI influencing each other in the future to come?
Yeah, so it is definitely it is happening even
Hmm.
now when we as we speak. I think this influence is still already I can see that. Um, so like take the example. Actually, you already mentioned about in sourcing with the diseases. That is definitely some change in a way. However, if I take about talk about Indian enterprise perspective, which typically my sector for last few years. So the change in mentality in terms of how uh, future of work is evolving is
Hmm.
quite especially post-COVID scenario, especially
Hmm.
post-COVID scenario, is really quite tremendous. So traditionally, enterprise level business units they prefer all like work from office and all this kind of thing, right? So that has been a traditional way of working. But then they once when that COVID happened, and then when they realized that things can be done from remotely through various means, either technology or some other AI tools and all, they realize, okay, this is not always necessary. So hence this shift has already started happening. And in my view, it will continue to happen. But at the same time, what I also feel one thing that in case of some bit of balance, again, I use that word balance here, in terms of how the way of working is evolving in pure technology organizations as against the way of working in core industry kind of enterprise organization. There will be some mismatch that will be
Correct.
always there. Core industry will be always cannot be always dependent on a fully remote kind of concept always. That will be always. I believe it is not possible at this moment. Maybe 100 years down the line, I do not know. But
Okay.
right now, I don't see it is there is a reality. So hence, there will be balance of traditional way of working and a new way of working will be always there in core industries. That is
Sure.
my thought at this moment.
Sure. Got it. Got it. Okay. So I think you're almost near 1 hour now.
Yeah.
Let me come to the last question. So, what would be your advice be for, let's say, a budding data scientist or a technologist who wants to come into the digital space, right? And wants aspires to be, let's say, a chief digital officer or chief analytics officer. For anyone who is budding or wanting to enter the space, what are the top two, three advice you would give him or her?
Yeah, so my advice would be like this: if the budding person is very new to this field, I would ask them to invest initial at least 5 years in one domain to start with, one industry or one domain, so that he gets the industry or domain exposure at least in one area in total depth. The reason why I'm saying because once he gets into depth of one industry, then by the time he reaches 4 5 years in that same segment, the person's mindset also opens up for the other dependency, right? If I take my example, I started my career with core manufacturing and supply chain for initial 9 10 years,
Hmm.
and then I realized, okay, I'm producing my product with this cost, with this availability and reliability. But ultimately, if my sales team has to sell it with some profitability, and that that only giving me salary eventually going down the line, right? So
Correct.
that is the reality, correct? And so that is what my first focus, that you be on the domain or industry at least for initial 4 5 years, then work on your basics as at least from the data science perspectives. Basics should be statistics. I would always call that without knowing statistics, you cannot become a machine learning engineer, machine learning expert. You can learn some topics, but you will always get the hiccups. You can do certification, but without basic statistics, it will be difficult. So that is the another area I also want them to focus on. And third aspect is that don't always get into solutioning mode, because I want to tie back with my one of your previous question, that always look at the defining the problem statement. if you define your problem statement well enough, then your subsequent modeling and all other aspect will be quite easier. So these are the 3-4 advice I would like to suggest for the budding data scientists and other professionals in this area.
Great. Excellent, Bhargav. Thank you so much. It's been 1 hour of great
Thanks.
listening to you and learning from you. And once again, thanks for making time to speak to us at Expert Talks at Mavrus.
Thank you, Maha. Thank you. Looking forward to.